Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah,
Let me just turn all this stuff off. How's the day been?
yeah. It's been good. I have got a few things done, a few more things still to do. Do you remember my friend from Romania, Mihai?
Sure, sure, sure.
I had a catch-up call with him this morning, and it went for an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, you guys don't tend to how's the weather it when you talk.
No, well, we do a little bit because there's some personal
Yeah,
stuff, but
yeah, sure.
we ended up having a very, very good conversation. And it was on Skype and I recorded it all and I'm having it transcribed because there was some great stuff that came out. So once hopefully I've got the transcription done, I'll share that with you and you can have a study through it.
But and DR, please do because you've always been gracious enough to do that in the past, and as you know, I mean, I get that. I put it on my phone, so when I'm walking and I'm driving, I'm doing stuff, I'm listening to it, and there's
Mm,
always some stuff that kind of glues a lot of our official conversations together from some of that background information. And
absolutely.
you know what was another all-world conversation that you shared with me, and it was wonderfully blue as well, was that conversation you had with the lady in Chicago. You
Oh,
know,
Christy, yeah.
you kind of, because you guys just riff, and
Yeah.
yeah, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. It's kind of like one of those just hey, let's discuss shit, sort of thing,
Yeah.
um that
Well,
that was that. Do
actually,
you still visit with her?
oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have a pretty regular Thursday 3 o'clock call, and we did earlier on. And actually, it was the first time that we'd done it on Zoom. Now,
Okay.
when I played back the call that I recorded with Mihai on Skype, my side of it was good, but his was very echoey, so it wasn't very good to
Yeah.
listen to. I'm hoping that the transcribers will be able to deal with that, and
Mm.
mostly it was my talking, so the sort of meat of it is decent anyway from my side of it. Um, so we'll see what comes of that. But with Christy today, we did the first one by Zoom, and
Mm.
what I found with recording you yesterday was the quality of the recordings with Zoom is second to none. Really, really.
Yeah. Brian Kurtz was the first person because I remember, I chatted to him when we were sort of putting a who's who list for Drayton's 80th.
Oh,
And I remember he sent me a Zoom link. And from that point, I was kind of like, Skype who, you know?
Skype.
And interesting enough, with my brother in America, our whole funnel for him is him just to basically sit down and talk to people and find out, okay, what are you thinking about your investments? Blah, blah. So I got him turned on to Skype. And the beautiful thing is, I mean, he can talk, but more importantly, he can record it with their permission, of course. And that gives me marketing fodder. So,
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. This thing about having conversations and really, like you say, riffing on stuff and exploring stuff and going down rabbit holes and so forth. I just can't. I just think it can't be beat. You know,
no, no, no.
really good.
By the way, DR, did you hear Andy Jenkins has died?
I was going to ask you the same thing, because I got an email. I was going through my spam folder this morning, and it found its way into there, and I read it, and I'm like, "You're joking."
And you see that I think the reason why everyone's been sort of, I mean, because you know all about the kind of Dan Kennedy false alarm
Yes.
from so I think everybody's been a bit reluctant to. So again, I was just in I don't know where, and then there's just a guy just like paragraph after paragraph, dear Andy, da da da, and I just thought, okay. And then at the end of one of the comments, someone said, "Well, has something happened?" They said, "Yeah, I mean, that
Yeah.
is
That's
just."
exciting.
It just rams home, and of course Sean Stevenson.
Who's that?
He went about a month ago. A month,
Don't
6 weeks
know
ago.
him.
So you'll know him if you saw him. I'm sure he's quite literally like he was, bless him, 3.5 feet. He was in a wheelchair all the time. Good
Oh,
buddies with Joe Polish and Brian Kurtz and all these guys. And basically all the way growing up, there were bone issues because of the nature of his body, but like if he sneezed and things, he'd break a rib and stuff like that. It'd be that. But went through, did his PhD, did some great things in the world, and then about 6 weeks ago, he fell out of his wheelchair.
Jeez.
And it just basically just did his insides in. They rushed him to intensive care and they lost him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Well, I was staggered when I thought it was. I thought it had gone into spam because it was spam, and no.
But apparently he had been sick, so I mean, he made the decision, obviously, to sort of do it on the quiet, if you like. He had cancer. This is what I heard. And then I went, he's best buddies with people like Frank Kern. I mean, Ken, as you know, had like a 3-hour chit chat with him back in the day when he was sort of still moving up in the System Club and stuff. So, but I honestly think after what happened with Dan Kennedy, with people coming forward and and then finding out, oh, hold on a minute, I think everyone's been a bit, jittery about sort of, but no, it was a shock to the system, man.
Yeah, it certainly was. And he must have been, I'll bet money he's younger than me.
Oh, and I didn't mean, oh yeah, of course, I didn't mean it that way, but I want to say he's got to be closer to me, so he's got to be like late 40s.
God, really? That young? Wow.
Yeah, I would say late 40s. If that, because, Frank Kern is 43, 44. It's just because these guys were around in that kind of wild, wild west punk hippie days, if you like. They were kids when they were doing all this stuff, True, yeah, they were I think he was probably about 45, 46, 47, younger than both of us.
Wow.
And when you look back, I mean, it's interesting because one of the great things about you, DR, and there's not many others out there, is that you've stayed in your lane. And Ken's spoken about this too, as far as, man, it's okay understanding that maybe I can make a few quid doing this and then they have to. But what I'm saying is that, I mean, you've always stayed in the lane with what you're doing. Sure, it's, shopping, but it's been Google and it's been, pay-per-click. But I mean, this guy, he was the video boss, wasn't he? Once, and this was his whole thing before video became, it was just the video boss, the video, this, that, and the other. And I mean, he'd done some affiliate stuff. And then in the final, then it was Webinar Jam, and then finally Kartra. And then, so you see all these reinventions and stuff like that. But I think one thing about these guys, and I know Ken has some strong words to say about them, and for good reason a lot of the time, but these guys did do good work, and they understood marketing, they understood human psychology, they had the work ethic, because you don't do what they've done unless you sit down and put a shift in as well,
Right. No, absolutely right.
But I hope in sort of days and weeks to come, there'll be not necessarily information about that, but about, because it was just a bolt out of the blue. I was going, Andy Jenkins.
Yes. And that's why I thought it had found its way to spam. I thought this can't.
Yeah, you thought it was just someone. Yeah.
God.
Anyway,
yes. Okay. So now I'm on the free version of Zoom, so it might object after 40 minutes because it's like limited like that. Having said that, I was on a call with Christy for an hour on Zoom earlier, and that all went fine. So we'll see how we do.
No worries. And listen, if you have to stop it and then we just jump straight back on it, you just tell me I'm here. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Good. All right. So the main thing then really is to go through the Trello boards together, so that I can talk you through everything that's in place, how it's all going to go, and what I've got in mind and stuff like that. So I created a new team for just the two of us, which I invited you to. And in there is a few boards, starting with the Forget the Money, Pay Google More, which is basically the book. So,
DR, did you want to share screen, or do you want me to log in?
Either works. Actually, probably. Why don't I just share my screen? That's going to probably be the easy.
Share the Trello board, yeah. So we looking. I mean, conversely, I can log in and just I'll know we're looking at the same thing. It's absolutely fine.
I'm sharing the screen, so you'll see the same thing either way.
Cool.
So let me know if you've got that. Can you see my shared screen?
I've got it.
Okay, great. All right,
Yep.
so let's just back up to the top level of the thing. So in Trello, when you log in, you should see, let's hope this works because my internet bandwidth here is not good. So there's this.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. I didn't know if it was on my side.
No, it's going to be my side because the broadband isn't very good here, unfortunately. It's the only downside of being here. Anyway, so there's this.
No worries.
Is it coming through okay, or is it giving problems?
Yep, I can see the forget the money, the personal boards and the clients and so on and so forth. So I'm looking at that, yeah.
So the categories and things like that. So we're going to start
Yes.
off with this one. So I've laid out a timeline, and this is kind of the framework that the SPS self-publishing school people work along, which is you do your outline, turn that into a rough draft, then you self-edit it, get a cover organised, get it professionally edited, and then you can publish it. You've got to know about your Kindle categories and so forth. Get a launch team together and then launch it and promote it. And with your permission, I'll have you in the launch team and you'll see what that's all about when I know more about what a launch team is and does and how it does it and all that sort of thing. Basically,
Awesome.
You just promote it to your, your network. So a big part of the strategy from the SPS guys is having this launch team so that there's people involved with getting the word out, basically, as the name implies. And I've never done that really properly, and that's a big thing that I need to do and, really be effective at. So
Okay, cool.
that's that. So structure doesn't really matter. Goal. Now, we've talked a lot about how crazy this whole industry is with percentage of ad spend and no money coming in and no results and not performance-based and cost center rather than profit center. So I want to get the word out that the industry is crazy. It needs disrupting. This percentage of ad spend model is ridiculous and it just needs blowing up. I want to make people aware of all the madness that's going on out there because it really is just nuts. So when I speak to people and I, tell them this stuff that's going on, they're all like, what the hell, So there's got to be a better way. And that's what I want to get documented in the book and broadcast and published and, known about. Obviously, we want to sell the book, build a subscriber list. This is very near and dear to your heart, I think. Building a subscriber.
Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you.
I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay, cool.
But you'll lap this up because this is really your ethic, if you like. But it's really important that I've engineered the back end products and subscriptions and stuff because that is what will be mentioned in the book, and I want the back end in place so that it's not just about getting the book out there and sold and reviewed and enjoyed and so forth, but it's the business card into the whole back end business of things. So I asked you yesterday if you knew how much time we had left. You don't have to have a fixed answer for that right now, but it'd be useful to know.
28 hours, dear, and going into this call now, so we're still in,
Fantastic, 28 hours. All right, that's nailed. My deadline for having the book live, at least by in Kindle, I'd like to be able to take a paper copy with me, but I told you about the HustleCon conference in San Francisco. I fly out on November the 25th, so I want to have the book. That's a Sunday, I think. So I want to have the book on hand by like Friday the 22nd, either Kindle and or paper. Now I'm going to give you a little briefing on self-publishing school. I don't know whether you'll be able to read this if it's too small or anything, but you can always go and browse around the Trello board after in your own time. But here's the thing. Chandler Bolt started this off, I don't know how many years ago, I want to say 5 or 6 years or something like that. They're a young company. And he mentioned a number that I found a bit mind-boggling. So I pinned him down and said to him later, look, you said a number and just tell me what that number is. they did $2.2 million of sales with just an opt-in page. They didn't even have a website. Mind-boggling. So he's all about speed, efficiency, performance, measurable results. He's minimum viable. He wants to get stuff done. He wants to get results. And he's really, obsessed with what people get out of his programs. So he's not just a sales guy. He's a guy who wants to make a difference to people. He's young. There's an organization. They're young, they're hungry, they're growing, they're very smart. They're really young people. I don't know whether I told you, but this was their first event, and it's way better than many established ones that I've been to over the years. Really, really did it well. And I have never, ever been to a conference where there were so many attendees with their mothers.
Really?
I was really gobsmacked. Chandler is young enough that his mother was there talking about him on stage. And there was 3 or 4 or 5 other attendees who'd got their mothers with them.
Wow.
This is just absolutely, and I deliberately wanted to be in a different community of people by going to this thing. And it was just way different, the publishers, the writers.
Do you know, DR, we know if push comes to shove, because we're grounded in direct marketing and direct response principles, we'll be fine. But for too long, it was a badge of honor that you didn't have to show exceptional quality to what you were doing. With the branding, with the events that you did, with everything else like that, it was almost like, well, it doesn't. And where these guys, these younger guys, have come into it, they've managed to find the blend of the brand and the direct marketing,
And they've been very deliberately conscientious with their level of professionalism. The materials, I tell you what, there were at least 2 free paperback books given out by contributors. Firstly, they were always giving stuff out. There was a paperback copy of The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, who was the keynote speaker on the last day. There was Chandler's own book called Published, which is very good, very, very good. At least those 2. Maybe I've missed one as well. And other things. They were just giving, they created a journal, a paper journal, which is very, very good. It's really, really good. And they gave that out for free, So
just raising the bar, aren't they?
Really, really, deliberately, conscientiously getting a very high standard and level of professionalism.
Good for them.
So I'll just take my hats off to them. It's just a different experience altogether. So anyway, they are all about exclusively publishing books, marketing them, building courses out of them, and helping you grow a back-end business. So it's really, really great stuff. Okay. So what I mentioned this, but what you and I are going to do is we're basically going to speak the book. I want to take you through the outline that I'll have, very, carefully all down. And we'll also use the slide deck of the class. So there'll be a couple of sources of material. But what that should allow us to do is to be really specific about a very particular thing. Yes, we might find rabbit holes open up, but they'll probably be already covered in other areas. And if they're not, then that's still good, because that'll just be another thing to go in the outline and to be another thing to talk about. So, we often find that great questions come out of this stuff. Rabbit holes pop up all over the place, and we follow and we generate some really, really good material. So the rough draft is basically what we're speaking. And I was saying to Mihai earlier, when I get the transcript of that, there's some really good stuff in it that I'll share with you. You can have the whole thing.
Please do, yeah. It really helps, DR, because in between our calls I've got that, so it kind of swishes around and things.
I was amazed at how much good stuff was coming out as a result of it, and we explored some very interesting things. Anyway, where was I going with that? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah. So, oh yeah, I know what it was. So I am dreadful, absolutely dreadful. I'm my own worst enemy at editing as I write, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do. You just got to get all the content out, and then as a rough draft, and then
go back
editing afterwards. Yes, that is something that this will really help us to do, because these are just going to be brain dumps all over the place. Very structured though, about very particular things, and that will mean that all the content will just get done basically, and then I'll be able to edit it without being involved in the writing at the same time. So some of the things that I wanted to just get on your radar, which are in these notes for you in this particular list here, are I want to explore all the common questions that everybody asks, because there's just so many of the darn things. I've written a few on a list here next to it. But we'll explore all of that. Also, there's a lot of questions that people don't ask that need to be asked. So, let's make sure we get those covered. And there's often questions I think, oh my God, why didn't somebody ask me about that? Because they're not even thinking about it. It's like people don't know that they need to ask about things that they don't know, and they don't know how to do that.
That's how J. Abraham always concludes his chit-chats with people, to say, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't? Right. He always concludes.
That's brilliant. You and I are just on the same wavelength with this stuff. It's going to be awesome. I want to tell stories as much as possible throughout the whole thing. My stories, client stories, war stories, horror stories, good results stories, everything, client failures that show up in what we're talking about, client successes that show up in what we're talking about. To borrow your expression, fascinations about things. What are those things all about? The structure of stories, the hero's journey and Stranger in Town, and people's struggles, transformations, inspirations, all those kinds of things. So I'm just going to add another card here, actually. So that is Hero's Journey and it is Stranger in Town, because they are the two main themes, as we know. So that's just some notes there for you to refer to as you go along. Common questions, we've touched on that. I've got an ideas list here. So as things occur to me, that I think, oh yeah, that's something that needs to be talked about, like digital matchmaking. We've talked about that before, I think. But these are things that just pop into my mind, and I'm just noting them down to make sure I've got them and we get them covered. Okay, the book will consist of a piece of what's known as front matter, which will basically be the common stuff that goes into every book. Now, this is the foundational book that we're working with here. Everything comes out of this. So when I talk about the e-commerce Bible, the AdWords Bible for e-commerce, and when I talk about Fully Booked, and when I talk about other things, they all come after. This is ground zero. This is the foundation. This is where it all comes from. So there's no or very little technical stuff in this book. It's all big picture strategy, rather than going down into the weeds of technical stuff.
So in effect, then it's going to be as relevant 7 years from now than it was. That is, yeah, awesome. And that's important to communicate,
Absolutely. So the front matter will go into every book. And I was talking about this with one of and I tell you what, there's some really seriously bloody smart and experienced publishing people in this community. What you can do, so and Hal Elrod touched on this in his thing as well. And so he wrote this book called Miracle Morning. I don't know, it's worth just having a look at the thing and learn a bit more about him. He was left for dead at the scene of a car crash, and they thought they'd lost him, and he was dead. He was hit by a drunk driver, and totally smashed up, very badly damaged and injured, and he died at the scene. And they resuscitated him, and he was in hospital, and he just went through a mind shift. And he talked about this in his keynote, and it's very inspiring. And if you read up a bit about him, you'll read his story, and it's very inspirational. So he wrote his book, and then what he did was he niched it into other industries, other verticals. So he wrote a version for salespeople. He wrote a version for other people. There's a whole variety of them. You'll find them on Amazon, of course. But that also then played into what I was thinking about in terms of, all right, since my book, this one is required reading, because this is basically the decommoditized by philosophy that the Dent KPI community talk about. So this book really is required reading before you read any of the others. And I was thinking, well, maybe I should just put the whole book into the front of, all the other stuff, like in a similar way to how Elrod has done, because his fundamental stuff goes into all of the niches. The downside that you need to know about with that in terms of Kindle is there's a proportion of your material that has to be different between two versions of the book. So, and people in the community know what that is. So I've just got to architect it so that those thresholds are met. So very likely what we're creating here will go into every other book that we also create. So when I talk about writing a book for service businesses, fully booked, which is started, then this is going to be at the front of it. And then I just need to make sure that there's enough different in the service business version of it that it
Gotcha.
Amazon's boxes.
It's a good shout. Yeah.
So it seemed better to me than, rather than mention this book in the others, to actually have it in there. So, but I'll figure that out better as we go along. But that's the overall kind of strategy for it. Okay, so we'll talk about where this all came from. The CEO Space Connection, and this is a good plug for them. And
sure, yeah.
I can go back to them and say, hey, I've written this book, and you guys get a big mention in it, and yada yada. So it's all ways to broaden out the reach of the thing. Actually, I've just realized that community is in my launch team as well. Why didn't I think of that before? So I'll just make a note of that to myself. This is the great thing about having these conversations. And then,
absolutely. Yeah, no. It does it.
Same thing earlier on. We got major stuff out that was like really good quality stuff. So that's all good.
And by the way, while we're on that topic, what I'm thinking of doing is when we get to launch, DR, let's have a chit chat that I will then put onto my weekly show, Build a Better Business.
Oh yeah.
And then I'll have that MP3, and then I'll be able to distribute that all to all the listeners and to the, just so there'll be quite a lot of, that as a part of it. We'll think of some other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to have you involved in reaching out to podcast people and literally, just going through all this stuff. The possibilities are really seriously big.
They are indeed. I think what I'm picking up, and I know you'll take this the right way, but I'm also picking up that you're kind of, you're always focused, DR, but you're committed to just sticking to this, Yes. Because sometimes, bless you get your head turned.
I know.
And so the other day when we spoke and you said the dates, and it's like Folio says, if it ain't scheduled, it ain't real. Now we've got the dates and bomb. So, it's great. It's great.
And like you said yesterday, what I want to get out of this is, calendar bookings where we are committed to, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
According to the hours that we've got, the timing that works for you. Like you said, it would be great if we can get a big piece of this underway next week. Just block the time and do it. That will be, superb. So yeah, you're right. I was saying to Mihai earlier, I should be, way ahead in terms of business development and finances and stuff of where I am. And I really feel as though the timing's never been right. I was saying to him, I was of a mindset in a not terribly distant past where I was thinking, I want to be able to make enough money out of this that I could retire Lynn and have her work for the business. And then I realised only recently, really, and I only finally realised it really when I was talking with Mihai really earlier on, that she's totally wrong. She's totally wrong for the business. It seemed like a great idea at the time to do that, but it would have been such totally the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
It was never a good business. She was never, ever going to be a good business partner. You know, we were of two completely different dispositions, attitudes, mindsets, and everything, and it would have been completely wrong. So it's only since 12 months ago that I moved out and took up my own life that all the floodgates opened in terms of meeting people, traveling, going to conferences, building my network, making new friends. You know, the whole thing, the timing of it was never right until then. And now the timing is right, and I'm in the right place, in the right set of circumstances with the right people to really focus on this and really make it happen.
So my brother, you know, when he since divorced his wife, but you know, they'd been married for a good while, and she and I were tight. I mean, she wasn't my sister-in-law, dear. She was my sister, you know. And basically she and they went their separate ways, and you know, full disclosure, she walked out on him in November of 2009. So it was a while ago, because, you know, he had come out of Goldman, he had come out of Morgan Stanley, he had decided, listen, hold on a minute, there is a market here to manage money for people who don't have 10 million, because not everyone has 10 million. And Goldman is saying, look, if you're 10 million, we know that. And my brother's thinking, well, hold on a minute, there's some unbelievably wealthy people who just don't have that. So I want to try this. And she was sort of saying, well, what about the security? Of course, they always get a nice bonus and blah, blah, blah. And basically, so she took off. Dear, by the following October, so 11 months before, he bought his first motor, and he's into his cars, you know, bought his first Porsche, cash money, 11 months later.
Good God.
And he said it would not have happened had Heather hung around.
Whoa, there you go.
I know, it's the damnedest, and you know, and it was at that point. So that happened then, and I remember this clearly because he then comes over here. He drives from Land's End to John O'Groats while still working, just doing the DR. You know, he's got his laptop, his phone. You know, stops at one place, does some work for clients, and so. And this is when, you know, the lifestyle all of a sudden had fallen into place. Yeah. The money was coming in and everything. And I can't explain it, because kind of like with Lynn, you know, Heather, that just a really decent human being, but just wasn't compatible. It's that whole thing, you know, what gets you out of Egypt won't get you to the promised land. Sometimes when we stop working for the man, and then we start going on to this other, they just struggle to keep up, man. It's you know.
Well, I've had a lot of realizations about her and the relationship and everything going on, and it's been very interesting. You know, I meet up and have dinner with. They come over. My boys come over for dinner from time to time, and we have. You know, I never ask them about her, and I always say to them, I deliberately. I mean, I don't even mention it at all to Josh, because he's the older one. He's very, he doesn't volunteer or anything, and he plays his cards close to his chest. You know, he's very like that. Charlie's much more. I won't say much more open about things, but he's more inclined to talk about these things, and sometimes he raises them, and I'm like, I'm glad you brought that up. I would never have asked you about it. It's none of my business, but if you want to talk about it, then you always can with me, you know. And he has volunteered stuff about her that has been, and since he started doing that, only within a couple of weeks or so, now Joshua's becoming a little bit more volunteering as well. It's quite interesting. I won't go into, you know, that stuff, but it's very, very interesting what's going on in the household, and in not in a way I would have thought, and really not in a way that they would have thought either. I'll tell you more about that some other time when we
sure, no worries.
socialising on it. But anyway, it was never going to work with her. And now that things are completely different, I feel as though the timing has suddenly come around, and I'm getting much more intentional about all this stuff deliberately, getting out my comfort zone with things and trying to take stuff on and investing money that I've got to make stuff happen, because it's time, you know, it's time for this thing to just really take on the life of its own that it should have, because it's just incredibly valuable for a lot of people, and they just don't know about it, and it's just got to be known about.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's a lot of different directions to go in, and I think one thing that's just, as you know, I like to sort of throw some feet. There's only one thing, and I've mentioned him before, that I want you to sort of, as you continue to do your things and formulate and articulate your opinion, really make sure that you keep checking in with Mark Ritson from Marketing Weekly, because he's this disruptive voice about the fact that we are piss poor marketers here, and everyone's just so tactical. And you know, but really, DR, and please do this, because this will be so important moving forward as you get your stage voice. I mean, you've already got it, but you know, go back into his archives, because I mean, you know, this guy's been riffing for 3-4 years. You just said go to Marketing Weekly. He doesn't. You'll only get a notification from the Marketing Weekly website, so sign up for whatever they do, and then whenever they do their weekly bulletin, it's always Ritson on blah blah blah, Ritson on. But then if you go to the site itself, you'll just see week after week all of Ritson's stuff. And he just calls people out, man, and totally on the money, totally.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you say, well, so he's a Brit. He's from Lancaster originally, now lives and teaches at a uni out in Australia. I think he married an Australian girl. Wow. He does an annual marketing class that's probably $2,500-3,000 or something, that people just go in, but otherwise he just tells it like it is. But the disruption, the thing about saying, hold on, you know, we're better than this as an industry, this isn't good enough, you know, that's the tone. And of course I'll be able to give you some ammo and fodder on that, because DR, I've never digressed from taking screen captures where in some of these so-called digital advertising groups, people are just sort of turning around and they're saying things to the equivalent of, guys, I've just got my first client. Shit, what do I do? I'm just thinking, and it's almost like there's some collective high fives from people, as opposed to saying, well, you have no right. And I'm always, you know, and then, you know, in a lot of these groups, when people always say to me, anytime it's paid advertising, and people say, how do I get clients? I always say the same thing to you. I say, spend your own money to find these clients.
Absolutely.
Start, you know, get used to putting the money in to try and find them. Then you got the scars. Yeah. Don't just bloody go onto Udemy, learn a few things, and then look someone in the eye and take their money. Don't do that. And they do that. So from the disruption, you know, this is where I want you to just see how Ritson goes. You'll get your, and by the way, it's not like you've never done this before. I mean, I've sat with you on webinars. I've been over there at Google. You're good at doing, but when you know, I said this to you about 2 years ago or 18 months, and this isn't me. Oh, I told you, I'm not saying that at all. But Google needs a soldier, a savior.
Yeah,
it's the damnedest that still nobody has stood up just to say, and the beautiful thing about you is that you've never digressed from the fact that you say, no, listen, this platform does what it says on the tin, kids.
Yes.
You just got to do bum. Yeah. But where it's been calling out and crying out is for somebody like yourself to say, man, if your agency isn't doing this, and this, or if your director of sales and marketing is not doing that, well, now there's no excuse after they hear what I've got to say.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not being too much of an a-hole about it. But with some, when you see them like with the Harley Street guys, just cleaning them out, and some of these people in the groups, and I will, obviously I don't want to, I don't want people to say, hey, we've got a mole in here, we've got to seal this leak and all the rest of it. But in the same breath, when you go to the likes of Upwork and things like that, and you see people with a certain amount of money, deal.
Yes.
To say, man, there's a lot on the line here.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
And these people don't know what they're doing. I have a problem with that, man.
Mihai and I, so Mihai introduced me, he and I last spoke 2 weeks ago, and he introduced me, you'll hear this you'll read this in the transcript. He introduced me to a website called the Lambda School.
The?
Lambda School.
Okay, Lambda School, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if I can figure out some kind of a way to. I'll get it over.
Yeah, no, I've written it down, so I'll find it.
School. Actually, I think I mentioned it in part of this Trello board somewhere or other. Anyway, I was absolutely. So the reason he showed it to me was I was telling him about my approach in terms of what I've done in my IT career and how similar that all is to what I'm doing now. And I'm just finding I can't get away from the fact that what I do with this whole PPC thing is totally the DNA of my IT career. I can't get away from it.
So, and sorry to jump in because I know, but the reason why I'm smiling the way I am, and I'll find it. Perry had a chit chat. I think it was with Glenn. With Jay or someone else. And he spoke about this. So he says, here's Glenn Livingston, who was a psychologist in another life, and then he becomes a marketer. So as a result, the marketing is based on Then there's this person who was this and that. Look at me. I'm a journo. I studied journalism at Troy University.
Yeah.
So although I'm a marketing, I found my lane at this kind of consultative marketing, and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's huge. So that's why I had a chuckle, because it takes you so long to realize. Look at my brother. Yeah. He studied medieval history and political science. So now when he gets a money report, it's kind of, okay, well, the Rothschilds would do this. That's how he does it. That's how he does it, DR.
No, that's brilliant. That is, Ken McCarthy says the same thing. He says, know your history. Know your history. You know? And yeah, gee.
And for him, so for him now, when he sits down and he's able to do this versus these whiz-bang kids on the street and things like that. But it's because there's something that is tied into him. And so you, as an IT guy, as an engineer, it inevitably comes into this. And I believe, even though it might not necessarily be sort of punted out still as the clicks, customers, cash flow system, blah, blah, DR, we've got to still move towards a proprietary name for it. Yes.
Well, I know what that is.
Okay.
I know what it is. So the title of the book, as you know here, is called Forget the Money, Pay Google More. Actually, I ought to include the cover. I'll put that in.
And you decided once and for all to remove the profanity from it then, did you?
I did, yeah. It was...
when you first said it, I went, rock on. And I just wondered, man, will this travel? Will DR, will the Huevos hold up to promote this here, there? And I think you've made the right call. But when you first said it, I was like, Yeah.
I liked it. It's very, provocative, but you can't really stand up in front of professional circles like
You gotta be able to fit in. You gotta have that
equally
comfortable sitting here and there,
So Forget the Money, Pay Google More. How to multiply your money with Google Ads, 20x ROI case study. That's all on the cover. I'll put a screenshot of the cover into the thing here. Why was I saying that?
I had mentioned a proprietary, basically in Schwartz terms, the unique mechanism, just the thing.
That's totally it. So I registered, I was quite surprised to find this, but I registered the domain name forgetthemoney.com.
And it was free, was it?
Yeah, I own it.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I a while ago I looked at things like show me the money and stuff like that, and of course that was long gone. But there's also there's an amount of proprietariness about that, and maybe even copyright and trademark and stuff like that, because it's very famous from a movie and all of that. Whereas you might remember Forget the Money by Neil Macaulay and Heat. Get the money. What do you mean get the money? It's a lot of money. What are you doing? I'm talking to an empty telephone because there's a dead man on the other end of this line. So
that was a classic, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Heat. So I own forgetthemoney.com, and that is, I think that's a rather nice domain name that something could be done with. And to your point of the system, the methodology, the terminology, the memorableness of the thing. So I kind of like that. But we'll
figure it out. Yeah.
It's on the roadmap. Okay. Now, I'm going to be working, and some of this stuff will come out as we're talking, because it inevitably does. We're so much aligned in terms of movie quotes and business quotes and work quotes and marketing quotes and yada yada. I'm going to liberally sprinkle the thing with quotes. This will be part of the framework of what goes into the chapters. There'll be a template of that, to the quotes. I read some interesting stuff about writing and subheading things and how to use bullets and so forth. I'll make a mention of that. So where's that from?
If you get the opportunity, DR, especially while you're scribbling down here, I've got it somewhere, so it may be easier for me just to send it to you and drop. But there's a good sort of 20-30 Mel Martin PDF on fascinations.
Please do.
Yeah. But to be fair, I mean, Uncle Ken, he very few are better than him at bullets as well.
So right. Yeah. So
he,
I will actually make a note of Ken's wisdom in there, because he does take some beating.
DR, it's one of these situations where any time I just get out an MP3 and I just listen, or some of the and just what he's just, honestly, if I was totally and utterly backed into a corner, man, I would, and it had to be just because he just has this vast reservoir of and he's a great synthesizer, even though he's totally good as a standalone. He's great at getting this information and just bringing it from someone too, I mean, so never any harm in just checking back in with some of his stuff.
You're absolutely right. I'll have to go and read. All my books are packed up now because of the relocation thing here. I'll have to get back into that. He nails things. He's very, very wise. Yeah, he really is. So, now there's some big categories which are the structure of the thing. In each category will be the chapters, which will have the title and the fascination and all those things, and what we'll drill down into with each of those things. The content of those things is largely going to be based on the outline, and some of it will come out of the slide deck. Slide deck is quite comprehensive. What I did was I've refined it a few times, and what I did was I went through it again recently and got it all back together again and got everything into place. And I deliberately made it as big as I thought it should be. I've done sort of subsets of it to trim it down. It's huge, and even a part of it is way bigger than an hour-long presentation. So I've had to trim it down and chop pieces out to deliver it, in sort of presentation form, teaching form. There's well over 120 slides in it. Some are very brief, but others are rabbit holes, and we'll go down those darn rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So, but the structure of the slide deck and the structure of the book and the purpose of the book is to break things down into chunks where we are going through a diagnosis of what is going on. All this will become very clear as we're going through the whole thing. But broadly speaking, it's assigned after the introduction and all that material. Then we get into the nitty gritty of the sections of the thing. And there's 4 sections. The first one being business. What's your business about? What does it do? How does it do it? What's it all about? What are all those questions? Then there's money. How do you make your money? Then after that comes the sales section, which is big, which is, well, okay, how do you sell your stuff? Who are you selling it to? What's your sales process? How does that whole thing work? And then finally, the piece that everybody does first, which should come last, which is the campaigns piece. This is why it doesn't work for people.
They just go in at the tactics and the tricks and techniques straight away, don't they?
Yeah, well, they haven't asked themselves the questions. I've told you about the book I read called Black Edge. Do you remember?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, true story, which became the inspiration for the 2 main characters in Billions.
Bobby X and
the bent head fund manager, and Chuck Rose, the DA who was trying to nail him. But that book is brilliant. It talks about insider information.
Yeah.
This is why I refer to it in my slide deck and the whole thing, which is, well, I'm going to ask you. The book asks you the questions that I would ask you. You can either read the book and figure it out for yourself, or you can pay me to go through the process. I'm going to ask you the same questions that the book asks, because these are all the questions that I ask businesses before I'll take them on as a client.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the answers, you need to find them out. If you don't understand how your sales process works and what your average order value is and what your average price is and all this stuff, then you need to know. So it's a big educational thing, which is why the book came as a result of this, because I was at CEO Space in December last year for the first time. I spoke to dozens of businesses, and every time I've been back, I've spoken to dozens of businesses, and I ask them all the same questions, and they don't know all the same answers. And when I was asked to teach my approach, I thought, this is the class I'll teach, because it's the questions I ask people, and it's the next book, and that's why it became the foundational book. Because you've got to have answers to all these questions. It's your insider info. It's your way to make Google pay you, because that's what's supposed to be happening here. So that's what it's all about. And, the campaigns piece that everybody does first, it's the last piece. And that's why people say it doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't work, because you haven't figured your business out. You haven't figured your money out. You haven't figured your sales out. How in the world and like you said earlier, does what it says on the tin, Google Ads.
And it just continues to be so easy to set these things up, doesn't it? It's kind of like before in Facebook with the Facebook boost. Write a post, put a photo, press a button, then boom, it's in front of. And so they're just able to just take your money with very easily. It's never been easier, and unless they pay attention to that stuff.
I was exploring the Amazon rabbit hole with me.
That is going to be.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Now, I'm getting closer and closer to the Amazon thing by virtue of the fact of owning a book and therefore wanting to run Amazon campaigns and promotions. Part of that. One of the presenters at Austin is a guy who's really figured out, and he's built tools and software. He gives away great stuff, and he really understands Amazon and Kindle and campaigns. He presented a piece on Amazon campaigns, and I was like, this is Google campaigns. Just, slight twists because of the nature of the ecosystem, but fundamentally, principally, like we talk about, same stuff. So, but here's the interesting thing. And I put it to Mihai, and I said, I only recently learned this. I didn't know this about Amazon, but here's the real fundamental difference between Amazon and Google Ads. Google doesn't give or need to give a flying fig about what happens after the click. They just don't need to. They've been paid already, right? They don't care. They should do, and they're only getting away with it because so many people pay them so much money and it never stops happening. I've got a slide in front of me, you'll see it, where you can see Google's revenue from advertising just goes up every year without fail right from the beginning. It's never stopped growing. They make more money every freaking year than they did the year before. It's insane. They can get away with this shit. They can get away with not caring about what happens after the click. That's your problem. You've got to figure it out. What's the click worth? Not what's it cost. How has it helped you to sell your stuff and make you money? Most people don't know. It's nuts. Now, Amazon, though, get this. Amazon's algorithm actually, so okay, I'll back up a touch more as well, which is worth exploring. We'll go through it in more detail, but you'll find this really fascinating. Google has always said that there's no relationship between organic results and paid search advertising. And I'm not in the least bit in any way disinclined to believe that. I do believe that. I've always believed it. So the two things are completely separate and the one does not affect the other. And it doesn't need to, because once Google's got the click, they've been paid. They don't care about anything else. Now, Amazon, they reward your ranking for sales. If you run campaigns, even if you don't, if you sell stuff to meet Amazon's thresholds, they will start to promote it and they will reward you with higher rankings. Because they have a vested, of course it makes total sense. They're a vested interest in, they're a selling marketplace.
Yes.
Products. Now, here's the thing, and this is what I said to Mihai. If you're running Amazon paid search campaigns, they are getting both bites of the cherry.
Yes, they're getting brass from you for everything, and if someone buys.
If somebody buys, they get paid twice.
Wow, so it's in the
Yeah,
that's huge. That's huge.
Absolutely massive. And when I realised that, I thought, somebody told me about it at the conference. Someone or other. This is why I was so keen to go and hang out with authors and people on Amazon and stuff like that. I learned so much.
There was a guy a few years ago, and I've forgotten his name. He's written some really good books on advertising and what have you. And he was being interviewed by someone on the back of his latest book. And this was like 3 years ago. And they sort of said, look, so, for the future, how do you see it? He goes, well, think about it with Amazon. You know what someone's interested in. You know what they bought before. Amazon want that person to buy again on the back of your ad money. So it's not like they just take the dough and bugger off ski. They want to sort of. He says, so keep an eye out for that. I'll never forget that he said that.
Yeah.
So,
it's so true, and I've just had a realization. This happens all the time on these calls. It's fantastic. It's why I love hanging out with you guys, because we get through so much stuff and so many ideas come out. But what Amazon do is your own free remarketing, because they email you about books, products, I should say, that people have been interested in, that you've been interested in. It's like lookalike audiences.
Lookalike audiences, yeah, because you're in it. So for me, obviously doing the research for Big Bro, I'm always being sent stuff like The Intelligent Investor, Buffetology, Snowball, Charlie Munger, all this stuff like that.
And we all love it because we can't buy stuff. Because I do it all the time on Kindle. I keep a page count of all the pages that I've read in every book that I've read, and I've been doing that for nearly 20 years. And
wow.
I think it was year before last when I went all in on Kindle, and we've talked about this before, paper books and digital books. I went all in on digital, on Kindle, and my page count almost doubled. I went from an average of about 15,000 pages a year to 25,000 pages in the year that happened. Because they were referring me books. I was discovering new authors. I was buying more and more stuff. So it fucking works like.
And it's funny you mention it, because if I get, most of the time now, if I get an email from Ryan Dice or someone else, I delete it. I just don't bother. There's some. I get one from Amazon. I'll click on, because even in the subject header, it mentions a book or a title that's something that
Yeah.
always look at it. Always.
Yeah. Their open rates must be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's true.
And like I said, I just literally realized a few minutes ago, this is their remarketing.
And lookalike audience, you're right. And their custom audience, you know? You've bought this, so you put into, geez, yeah.
And when you say that, you're like, ding, the light goes.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
massive.
Whoa, that's fantastic. Massive. So we're on our hour. This has been really great, MM.
It has been. It really has. And as I said, I'm excited at what's going to follow. Dia, I don't know if you've sent it to me before. Do you have your teaching slides that you do the same sort of, I don't want to call it a keynote, but you do the same presentation, do you, all the time?
Yeah.
Do you have that?
Yes, of course.
It would just be handy for me to see that and just to sort of
absolutely, no, great idea. Actually, there's a link to it in the place somewhere, but I'll send you a Dropbox link to it, so you can just grab it whenever you want.
Cool.
Right. So what I'll do from here then, actually, so I'm going to turn it over to you in terms of your schedule for next week. Why don't you pop me an email with your availabilities next week?
Yeah, cool.
Let's dig into this as much as we can.
Absolutely.
And it's easy for me because I'm just totally, at my own cognizance. But
it's funny because it's almost like role reversal now, because I'm the one on the school runs and what have you and stuff like. And of course, Tivi's mum, she starts early. A lot of the time, she starts at 8 when she starts in the morning. So, and Tivi doesn't start school till 8:45. So there's sometimes the 2 a day action, and I don't know. We just made the decision. I like it. She's a good lass. After school, she'll come and stop with me until her mum gets home, sort of thing. Nice. But I've got the calendar, so I'll that's all I need to do, and I'll be able to do that this evening just to see and make sure for next week, and then we'll map it all out.
You can always see my availability in Calendly at any time.
Yes, perfect.
You can put yourself in on any of those things. It works for me, but also weekends. Now, that might be completely outside of the scope of your thing. No idea. But weekends, I'm working.
Yeah. No. Well, Saturdays is my one day off. Sundays, it's possible if I don't have the kid. So for sure, we can do some Sundays. So yeah, no. I think more than that, what we want to do, we want to make sure that you're good and ready and prepared. A good way before, because then there's a bit of tweaking and things like that, and then we can talk about some of the systems, because while you're out and about, you might just be able, need to say, oh look, could you send this, or you have something down, so it'll be good just to have this all taken care of. So
Okay, fantastic. It's been really great.
Yeah, likewise, mate. So listen, I'll circle back to you tomorrow, okay, with how I'm looking for next week, and then we can just bomb, and we can go from there.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, so I'll let you know your availabilities, and I'll send you a link to the slide deck and any other things. I've popped a couple of notes in here. I'll make sure I get those taken care of for you as well. So, yeah, brilliant. Thanks, okay. Emma. I'm really looking forward to this.
My absolute pleasure. Great talking to you as always, dear.
Yeah, you too. Are you recording the Zoom thing from your end as well?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I had the access to do that, or well, it's here, yeah. So no, but it has been recording because the little red light has been on and off there. Okay. And listen, we probably need to make sure that we have that plan B when we do it next week. Double bubble.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're probably a bit more experienced on that side of things. So.
Yeah. I'll figure that out. I think I've got. There should be an app where, at the worst, I can be recording our audio, so at least we've got it all done. But let me work on that, okay? Because I actually do want to get very deep into Zoom, because it's
really good.
It is. It really, really, really is. So it's worth taking that time to sort of really get in and amongst it.
I get notifications from a website called payments.com so it's pymnts.com. I'm actually going to send you this link afterwards.
Okay.
they've just, so they push out, articles and news and stuff all the time. So here's the headline: Shopify rolls out experts marketplace to help retailers. It's literally just come in, and I'm like,
wow.
Holy shit, my book goes straight into that marketplace. Retailers trying to scale their businesses can now get expert help from a new Shopify platform that connects merchants with skilled professionals, Shopify announced in a press release. The new Experts Marketplace connects retailers with external resources and experts who specialize in the Shopify platform. Merchants can browse profiles and reviews to gather information about experts' skills and abilities to aid in decision-making. Whoa. So, here we go. The network will offer hundreds of experts for projects such as store building, branding, marketing, and more. Whoa.
There you go. Yeah, so there's for sure. There's a play there, for sure.
There is.
And the great thing is they've got their ecosystem of people.
Yeah,
so
Shopify really good.
Yeah.
Really good. They're very well integrated with Google and all of that.
Even more reason to make sure we've got that list building strategy in place, dear.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Good talking to you, pal.
Finally on the same page as you.
No, in fairness, you always have been. I don't think you've ever not. But this is what I think, DR, because and I'm going to find this for you. I'm really going to find this for you because I think it's relevant for you. There's a lady in the media buying world, black girl, and her name is Shola Adeboye, and she calls the 7 Ds of disruption.
Oh,
and it's kind of like death, Andy Jenkins. Because she's talking about the things that kick in that F up your ability to earn or earn consistently.
Yeah.
Divorce, disagreement, disruption in the industry, disinterest. There's 7 of them. And so what she's saying is that this is why it's important to build up assets.
Yes.
And that's what we will do now, and none bigger than your list. So when you are out and about and for whatever reason something's happened, you can do what all these other blue chippers do. They basically write an email. Ping. It's like Lennon paying for the swimming pool.
Yeah.
So, he goes, when I want a swimming pool, I write a hit song, So, I mean, when Kennedy got divorced, so he got divorced.
Oh, did
and he remarried his second wife. So he's been married
didn't he?
Yeah. So he says, I finally married into money. But the minute that happened, and he said, well, fuck this. He says, I'm not paying for this. He says, I'm going to get the herd to it. He called them out. Fuck this. I'm not paying for this. I'm going to just ping out there, So for you, and the other thing is, DR, I mean, I will continue. I'm going to create a folder of screenshots. Just from some of the rhetoric that goes on in some of these groups, because I think, as particularly when we're talking, it'll give you some background information.
Yes, that is really, really.
One guy, I think he set his budgets at a certain amount, and Google took like 16 times the amount out or something.
Wow. Yeah.
And then he sort of said, "Well, what happened here?" And I think someone said, "Well, even though you put this as your daily thing, they calculated it per month." So they just decided just to,
extrapolate.
So of course, now a client who he took on, who's paying him a management fee, have quote unquote just had even more taken on, and they're sort of going, this is there are no winners in that situation.
Yeah, this is it. No, that's fantastic. Let's explore those. It's like I said in the what's going wrong with clients and what's going wrong in the marketing community.
And the truth of the matter is, DR, and I know you know this, right? But I, me being part of so many of these kind of forums and things like that, yes, of course, there's an element but it's also been because of the work we do, because somebody really, it's kind of like Tao. It's like my brother. He sits down with people and they talk to them there. Unless I can get 17% returns, I'm not interested. And my brother says, well, who is telling you this?
Yes.
Who's telling you this? And then he sits down and he says, let me tell you, over a certain amount of time, if you're getting 6% or 8%, this is the S&P beating the market. Now, my brother so happens does do better than this, but the problem is you get these managers who tell people, and this is all they want to hear. This is all they want to hear. Oh, what you mean? I can do this and I can get 17%, 17, dear.
Yeah. Crazy.
So same with some of these Google groups, and this is why, honestly, what I'll start doing, I'll just start putting them in there, and then periodically you can just go in and look at, and if the question or the person, his statement is bad enough, it's some of the answers from the group kinfolk. Yeah, it'll drive you to drink, man. Some of these, and then you're just thinking, whoa. And of course it gets passed on to the entrepreneur doing good work in the world.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about it is they are open to the whole thing of paying to acquire a customer. They're open. They're not these ones who say, "Oh, I only do word of mouth or SEO." Yeah, they've actually bought into the thing about saying, "Here's my money," in order to get something back.
Yeah.
And then they get shafted.
God, Jesus Christ!
I know. So we got work to do, and I suppose the only final thing, DR, and I know you'll take this for the way it's meant. This is all about how well we market this thing. Because if somebody talks to you, or picks up your book, or asks you to come in and help them, they're going to be sorted. Yeah. What we've got to do is we've got to market this.
Oh yeah.
We got to speak to this problem. We got to call these people out. We got to just, because that's all this boils down to. Because you will deliver. I know you will.
Totally true. Totally true. We're really soulmates on this whole thing, I think, because we just
cool.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, I'll get an email over to you with a couple of things on it for you to look at, and you come up with some absolutely brilliant ideas there. So,
thank you, dear. Appreciate it. And check out Mark Ritson. Just start looking at some, and I mean, subtle as a bloody nose, man. It's just, but and interestingly enough, big China's with Drayton, and they don't visit, they don't do joint ventures or anything else like that. But yeah. So I'm actually I'm gonna. Bless him. This was a bit of a thrill. He actually, he's invited me for supper up in Bristol and down in Bristol where he lives, Drayton.
Really?
Yeah. And out of the blue, he just messaged me. Hey, listen, he says, look, I hadn't thanked you for that. Just, do you know what I'm going to do though, man? I don't know if you know this. Ogilvy arrived when he put together that cooker manual, Arga cooker manual. Did you hear about it?
No.
So after doing the Gallup thing,
yeah.
Right. He because he was a door-to-door salesman and stuff like that. He started doing some work for Arga cookers. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I didn't know that.
These big old cookers, right? And they were great. They were perfect, but they weren't shifting them.
Right.
Ogilvy put together a sales manual on how to sell it. And it's widely recognized as one of the great all-world sales manuals of all time.
I'll be done.
Because basically what he did was he was a salesman.
Yeah.
So he would go knocking door to door, and he was shifting these fuckers. And people were going, man, what's up?
Oh.
So he documented it, and then they gave this to all the other guys.
Right.
And so what I want to do, I want Drayton to dissect it and things like that. So like, the Arga cooker, but no, that's. And they said so this is this whole thing about, by the time he got to doing all this stuff for Guinness and Hathaway and blah, blah, cookers, dear, door to door cookers.
That's fucking priceless, man.
Yeah.
So when's that happening? When are you going down there?
Man, he's been asking for a while. So what I'm thinking of doing is probably when I get back from half term and all the rest of it. So
I'll probably
look early November. I'll go there. I just can't wait. And I've done some research. I've seen him in previous interviews where he talks about like the wine he likes and a few other bits and pieces. So I'll get a little hamper to take. It's going to be an absolute thrill, man. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. Man.
Oh man, that's going to be so great.
Yeah, it's cool. But I suppose it's kind of like, with you and your forward, from Ken and Perry and you sharing stages and stuff like that. You can't bullshit these people.
No.
You just can't. And Drayton, there was one time I'd send him some stuff and he came back. And you know how these guys, man, sometimes these guys can just, I'm all for keeping it real, but some of these guys just fucking absolutely just get the ring piece out of you when they change this, change, you know? So I went back and I sort of said, look, man, I mean, and then he came back at me and I said, look, and then I just thought, fuck you, I'm sorry I even asked in the first place, sort of thing, right? And then he sent me an email and it was from his business partners and stuff like that. And one said, you know what, and it was sent a while back. He goes, one of his business partners, Al, says, man, I like Much's stuff. The guy knows what he's doing. And then Drayton said, this is why I'm giving you a hard time.
Tough love, eh?
Because you've got to,
tough love.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
All right then, dear. Good on you.
Fantastic. Okay.
Thanks for taking the time to visit and explain this stuff. So I'll be ready to rock and roll next week. It'll probably be from Tuesday because Monday's my show. But I'll make sure that I get this all to you tomorrow. I'll put it all in the calendars and what have you.
Fantastic. Thanks
right.
ever so much, man.
Have a good evening.
Cheers, you too.
Bye.